Hola mi gente, and welcome to this space, to the Mariana Atencio Show, where the cafecito is always flowing. How is your week going? Thank you so much for coming on here. I'm going to take a little sip because it is a big week on here. I am getting ready to go to New York City, where early next week I am going to be hosting one of the biggest events in banking. This is a summit called The Next 100 Years by Itaú BBA. Itaú is one of the biggest banks in the hemisphere, in the Americas. It is a giant in the region, a giant in Brazil. And for this summit, which is happening all day on Monday, I am going to be introducing and I'm going to be interviewing some pretty important people, ranging from former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg to folks like General Petraeus, as well as hedge fund manager Bill Ackman. It is a big deal, my friends. So I was preparing to go crush it on Monday, and I thought that it's always useful for you guys to know how you can prepare for a big talk or a big interview. So whether you need to give a big presentation at work, whether you're heading into a space where you feel that you need to own your voice, and even if it's a big moment or a presentation on Zoom, I want my work to work for you. So this is tips and tricks that I've learned from live TV, from global stages, and with leaders around the world. Because guess what? I still get nervous and I have my rituals. So are you ready to kick this off? Let's do it. This is the first episode of what we are calling here on the show Authenticity Academy. The 5 ways I stay grounded before a big talk or interview. These are the habits that I come back to again and again and again, especially when the pressure's on. So whether you are a professional, whether you are scaling your business, taking it to the next level, whether you are looking for a pivot, this is information that you absolutely have to know. So let's jump to the very first tip and trick, which is to pump yourself up with music or a video clip. This will help you stay present, prepared, and be powerful. Now, what do I mean with pump up music or a video clip? You need to get in the frame of mind of that important moment that you're heading into. And this is something that I do as I am even, brushing my teeth the morning of the event. Sometimes can be a reggaeton song, rock and roll, your Peloton playlist. I actually curated a motivational playlist for myself of the songs that pump me up just for the days when I am going to head out there to do speaking. It's almost like you're going to go into the arena and you need to, pump yourself up, kind of like Rocky or something. And it's more about just, again, getting into the zone. I will reveal to you guys what my motivational playlist is called at the very end of this episode, because it's actually a little embarrassing. But again, it's about getting that energy where it needs to be. So before we get to some of the songs and the video clips that I recommend for you guys, I strongly recommend you try to do or to get a workout in before the actual speaking event. If you can't get a quick Peloton ride or a run in, do 10 jumping jacks. Sometimes for really long events, I travel with a jump rope. And many of you who follow me on social media may have seen that from time to time when I do behind the scenes. But it immediately changes your posture, your tone, your energy. And the audience, they feel that shift too. So if you're looking for these movie clips or songs that are gonna pump you up, these are a couple that I literally have on my phone. As I'm walking to the event, I literally play them just as I'm getting on stage or while I'm waiting in the wings in the green room. One of my all-time favorite ones, because this is what you wanna communicate to the audience, is this one, because I'm a big film buff and I'm a big 90s film buff. So let's watch it together.
I'm dying in your beds many years from now. Would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Woohoo! Even I got pumped here watching it now. You want to have that Braveheart moment with the audience. And William Wallace, aka, or Mel Gibson, aka William Wallace, will certainly get you there. It's about reminding yourself, you got this. And if you're doing hosting duties, you know, the entire energy of the event will depend on you. So that lyric, that video clip will shift your entire nervous system. Another one that I have handy, if it's a moment that's more poignant and I need to play with the cadence of my voice, there's nobody that does that better than Miss Oprah Winfrey. And this is one that I kept handy, especially when I was doing my TEDx talks. She gave this speech when she got the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Golden Globes. And she talks about the Me Too movement because it's back in 2018. But don't worry about the politics or about the actual substance. Just watch as she gets everybody in Hollywood just at the cusp of almost crying over her speech. Let's watch it.
When that new day finally dawns, it will be because of a lot of magnificent women, many of whom are right here in this room tonight, and some pretty phenomenal men fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, "Me too," again. Thank you.
So there you have an example just with cadence and pauses, how she got the audience, you know, to that crescendo. And again, these are things that if I'm nervous, I just play on AirPods before I get on stage and they totally shift the energy. Let's move to the second tip. And this is rehearsing and saying the opening out loud multiple times. This is so, so important, guys, because the opening will actually determine your entire speech. You don't have to rehearse the whole thing, but if you get the first couple of lines down and you repeat them out loud over and over again, that is going to determine what's going to happen next. And your opening sets the tone even for the audience for everything that follows. They look at you, and if you sound so sure of yourself in the beginning, they're like, I can trust this person. And everything else will flow after that. Think of it like this. You are Simone Biles. You are an Olympic gymnast. You need to know how to get on that balance beam with confidence. You need to know how you're going to get off. You need to know your dismount. But if you stumble, if you wobble in the very first couple of seconds, the uncertainty is going to ripple throughout the rest of your performance. So think about the fact that you want to hit that opening clean, and the rest is going to flow with rhythm and momentum. Another pro trick for this one is if you can almost memorize the opening so you don't have to look at your notes. And neuroscience actually backs this up, because starting strong boosts your brain's ability to stay focused under pressure. The brain uses something called the primacy bias, meaning it remembers what it hears first. It uses those first few seconds to determine, as I was saying before, from the audience standpoint, how confident, how trustworthy you are. So again, rehearsed your first lines, first couple of lines, like your performance, your entire performance depends on them, because it does. And if, again, you can deliver it without relying on a prompter, without looking at your notes or a piece of paper, later, it doesn't matter if you then turn to your notes, but try to deliver those first few seconds just connecting with the audience, because it will make an impact on them right away. It will connect with the audience, and you'll actually connect with yourself in a much stronger way. We move on to the third trick, the third step. Reconnect to your why, and reconnect to who you're speaking to. You know, sometimes your why comes, and this is the case for me, from the broader purpose of the event. Just say to yourself, I'm here for a reason. In the case of the Monday event, I'm here to help elevate a Latin American institution to a global platform here in New York City where it deserves to be, like Itaú hosting that event in the Big Apple. And that why matters. Other times, the reason may be even more personal. You're there to speak about loss, or you're there to speak about a project that you truly believe in. You're there to speak about legacy. So always ask yourself, why is it that I'm here? And why is it that this speech is important? I think back to where I came from, and I tell myself, I didn't get here just to get here from Caracas, Venezuela. This moment is going to propel me where I want to go. And that simple truth recenters me. Another trick for this one is that it also helps to visualize one person in the audience who needs to hear what you have to say. And it's not the entire crowd, it's not the cameras, and probably not the VIPs in the front row. It's the one person. Maybe it's that female executive, that professional woman trying to take her career to the next step, or her company to the next level. Just like I was once before. That person becomes your anchor. And they don't have to be an imaginary person either, because if you can take a minute to talk to your audience a little bit before the speech, you'll be able to actually have like real people, that real person that you're talking to. Because often as a speaker and for these big presentations at your job, you'll be invited to arrive the night before or attend the breakfast that morning. So don't stay in your room nervously, holding your pieces of paper. Go walk around, introduce yourself. If people are mingling over coffee, I unabashedly, sin pena, I say, hi, I'm Mariana. I'm giving the keynote today. And I tell them, root for me. Clap real hard, like, no me da pena decirle esas cosas. That small connection goes a long way. And then when you're on stage, you'll remember those people. And you can even ask, what brings you here today? Or, what's top of mind for folks in your department? What would you love to walk away with? Their answers will tell you what's on their minds, that morning, that afternoon. And maybe it's something happening inside the company. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that there were big weather delays trying to get to the conference space. So all of that is fodder that when you are on stage and connecting with the audience for the first couple of seconds, you want to bring up so they say, wow, how did she know that? She really wants us to feel seen. So you get on stage and you say something simple like, my name is Mariana. Today we're going to be talking about how to bring Itaú to the next 100 years. I'm making this up. And then something like, I know it was tough to get here this morning for many of you with the rains and the delays, but I am so thankful and appreciative that you're here. Are you ready to get started? Immediately, they feel seen. And they'll know this speaker truly came to connect. Okay, we're going to move on to the next trick right over here. And this one is very important. And it's what I call your grounding phase. So you have your pump up motivational music and your videos. But right before I walk on, you got to say, like, this is your Braveheart phase, your Rocky phrase. Mine is, I can, I will, I belong. You belong to every room you enter. Yours can be something short, like, you got this, or let it flow. De pronto se persignan. You say the sign of the cross. You make the sign of the cross. You say to yourself, they invited me here for a reason. Say it like you mean it. Say it until your body truly believes it, because it brings you back to yourself right before that first step on stage or into the spotlight. For my Spanish speakers, something a little more raw, a phrase that's a little more raw that I've used in the past, comes from a show that is beloved, La Casa de Papel, in English called Money Heist. You guys remember that scene when that amazing female character, Nairobi, was coaching that girl to bring her self-esteem up, And she asked her to get, I'm pulling it up right here, to get in front of the mirror and say, Yo soy la ama. Say it to yourself, because you can say this motivational phrase to yourself while looking at the mirror as well, like in the public restroom before you go on stage. And this is a scene that pumped me up for a very long time. So I just want to show it to you now. Let's play it.
Repítelo. ¿Qué eres qué? La puta ama. ¿Qué eres qué? La puta ama. ¿Qué eres qué? La puta ama.
Okay, now it's time for me to reveal to you guys what I promised in the beginning. What is the name of my motivational playlist to get pumped before I go on to events? La Pijama. I don't know if you can see it, but that's what it's called. Me da un poco de pena revelarlo, but listen, I've had this for years. It's worked so effectively for me that I now have a second motivational playlist called LPA2. So that's just a little inside joke for my Spanish speakers on here. But let's move on to the fifth and final step, and it is finally, whatever you do, always just breathe, okay? Do 3 deep conscious breaths. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. Breathing sends your body the message, I'm safe. I've done this backstage at the United Nations, at Microsoft, at Women's Summit. I'll do it again this week at Itaú. Just breathe. That way, when you walk on stage and you'll say your rehearsed opening, you'll have enough air to not be gasping for air. Because no matter how big the moment feels, you have to bring your nervous system back to your body. And once again, we go back to the science. It is proven. The breath is the fastest way to get there. So here they are, mi gente, my 5 go-to ways to stay grounded before a big talk or interview. Let's recap. First, you have to shift your energy. You have to get that blood pumping in through your veins. A motivational song, playlist, or video will always put you in the zone. Now we move on to the second one, which is rehearse your opening lines. Nail those first few things that you're going to communicate to the audience, and everything else will flow. Remember, you're like an Olympic gymnast. You need to get on that balance beam strong and without wobbling. Third, reconnect to your why and visualize one person who needs to hear your message that day. And if you can, mingle and talk with some of the attendees before that. That always helps. Fourth, say your grounding phrase. I can, I will, I belong, I got this. And finally, breathe. You don't have to be perfect to nail this, mi gente. You just have to be real. And that's what people remember. That's what will give you real confidence. And that's why this is the debut episode of this new section, which we are proudly calling Authenticity Academy. I want to thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If this helped you prepare for your next meeting or presentation or big talk or interview, share it with someone who also has a big moment coming up. And drop me a comment. Have they started to work for you already? What do you do to stay grounded before something big? Comparte este video con alguien que tiene un momento importante que viene en su vida para darles estos 5 tips para mantenerte fuerte y con peso antes de una presentación importante o de una entrevista. Y cuéntame en los comentarios cuál es el tip que más te gustó, ya los empezaste a aplicar y qué haces tú para mantenerte fuerte y con peso y centrado o centrada antes de montarte en el escenario. Me encanta que estén aquí. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the first episode of Authenticity Academy. As always, I'm Mariana Atencio. Gracias por estar aquí. Thank you so much for being here.